Hi, my name is Julian Cardenas, and I am the director of the Center for U.S. and Mexican Law at the University of Houston Law Center. The center is supporting the organization of the symposium from kickoff to consensus, the 2026 FIFA World Cup and North America cooperation, highlighting the importance of cooperation between the United States, Mexico, and Canada in the organization of mega sports events. This is another episode of our series of podcasts interviewing experts in the field of sport law. Today, we have a special guest. It's Curtis Franks, General Counsel of FIFA World Cup at FIFA, a graduate from Tulane University who agreed to speak with us about the legal aspects of the organization of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So thank you very much, Curtis, for being with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, Curtis, first of all, we're very impressed with the work that you do. In the sense that being in the legal practice in the organization of the biggest sport event in the world has to be a remarkable experience, a breakthrough experience for you. Also, for this soccer World Cup, there's a record number of teams, record number of matches. The host countries are three nations: Mexico, Canada, and the U.S., as we mentioned. So I imagine that you deal a lot with adapting national regulation or practices with FIFA standards. So can you tell us a little bit more about your practice for the Soccer World Cup?
I'm the general counsel for the World Cup. So I have just a responsibility for everything legal associated with putting on the tournament. So that is across all three countries. So I have a team that sits here in the US, but also have a team in Mexico and Canada as well. And really, we ensure that we work across all three countries to execute everything that's we're responsible for the tournament. So that's everything from our contractual relationships with the stadiums, our contractual relationship with the host committees in each of the 16 host cities, everything that needs to happen. So that is immigration, getting people in and out. That is customs, getting equipment and things in and out. That is employment matters that happen across all three countries, hiring and ensuring that we're in compliance with, some states in the U.S. and Mexico and Canada from a wage and employment standpoint. We deal with those issues as well. Uh, Everything from training sites to our teams are going to stay. So we kind of manage the legal contractual relationships with those training sites. And then just a host of logistical items of moving equipment, people, goods, services, and things like that around the tournament as well as also what we deal with. So if you see something that's happening within the tournament at some point, my team or myself, we had a touch point into having it because we kind of handle everything from a legal standpoint. Just and so we really, and I always preach with my team communication across all three countries because there are a lot of nuances that happen. So it's not just that you're dealing with one tournament, you're dealing with one tournament across three countries.
Mhm.
You are have a tournament that is in various different states in the US. It's in two different states, in province in three different states in Mexico, two different provinces in Canada, and across 16 different cities. And so that's a lot of jurisdictional kind of, legal frameworks that you have to work through. And unlike previous World Cups that were, maybe in Russia and Qatar,
Mhm.
these are not, these are kind of democracies and not kind of autocratic places where one person can kind of make a ruling about everything that needs to go. These are also kind of federalistic, democracies as well, in which you have kind of federal governments in each one, but then you also have state and local governments as well. And so one entity can't just make a decision on a lot of things that are happening. So, for example, the federal government doesn't really have to do anything to do with the permitting and the things that we need to do at a local level to what we need to do. But the federal government does control the immigration and the customs allowing things in and out of the country. So it's a little bit of a nuance aspects of things that we deal with here. So for us, it's all about making sure that we are, as much as we want to stay consistent across all three countries and kind of put on the World Cup in a way that has been done in the past, we do have to adjust for the legal and local landscape that we have. And that's kind of what my team does and manages on a day-to-day basis. So.
And you have been involved in the organization for how long?
So I started in 2023, so we're coming up on 3 years where I've been here doing that. The first 6 months was just me before I had the opportunity to just hire a team. And
Okay.
now we've grown to a total of about 21 folks, about 18
Wow.
attorneys, and then a couple of law clerks and legal and paralegals as well. So
And Curtis, in the celebration of the matches, you have to deal with the stadiums in the three countries. These are stadiums that are world-class stadiums, I imagine, right? You pick the best that the countries have in Mexico, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Mexico City, Canada, and the U.S.
yep.
So, but despite the fact that these are world-class stadiums that normally they host international competitions, do you still have to work with them applying FIFA standards or practices for these for the soccer World Cup?
Yes, definitely. So, especially with a lot of the stadiums in the US, they're not really FIFA compliant with the measurements and standards for how a legal pitches and then the specifications for a pitch for the World Cup. So a lot of the stadiums in the US have had to have made modifications. They are basically built for American football. American football, the size and kind of the shape of what that is. So there have been a lot of bowl modifications that these various stadiums have had to make to in order to kind of comply with the standards that we put in place for a World Cup. So that's expanding, removing seats, making seats more, temporary, move some things out. There are also kind of other little things too. So some of the stadiums, particularly some of the smaller ones, may not have had the necessary little things like concessions. So we require a certain number of concessions outlets and things like that. So they've had to either build in concessions areas or essentially bring in temporary things to kind of comply for that. So we work with the stadiums a lot to ensure there was a lot of specifications that were put out during the bidding process where all the stadiums were there. And then once the stadium said, yes, we agree to make those modifications, we've basically been working from a compliance standpoint with those stadiums to ensure that the stadiums meet the specifications that were listed out in the bid. So for some stadiums, it's easier because they kind of made model those things, but some of the older stadiums,
Mhm.
um, not so much. So an example of that, the older stadium would have to make a lot of modifications and some renovations is in Mexico City, Azteca, that had to be kind of changed and modified and doing some things that from the amount of suites so to kind of the pitch modifications and everything else just to make sure that it was in compliance there. And even in Toronto, it's a smaller venue that we have there, so they've done a lot of modifications there to basically expand in some ways to kind of make sure that they are compliant with the specifications that we have there. So we work with the stadiums on a consistent basis to make sure that happens.
Very interesting. And Curtis, when you deal with local authorities, are you dealing, your counterparty will be a government organization dealing with FIFA? Do you deal with contractors? Is the local authority, the local agency dealing with the contractors to comply with this?
It's a little bit of both. So we have
Mhm.
in each of the each of the cities where the 16 host cities across North America, there's a host committee
Mhm.
that is a part of that. And we usually work a lot with that host committee, and they're responsible to just helping us kind of navigate things locally. So that's local law enforcement, that's local governments, and that's kind of local contractors and what we have there. So, but it really just depends. It depends on what some of those obligations are the host committee's obligations. And so it's their responsibility to do that. We're just kind of making sure it happens. But sometimes some of the obligations are ours. So, for example, if it is something that we're going to do at the stadium where we need permits or things that are going to happen because of some activity that we're conducting, a lot of that's going to happen in our hospitality spaces. We're building
Mhm.
out additional hospitality areas in and around the stadiums for the World Cup that they're not necessarily there with the stadiums. We have to get permits and things like that. We will manage that process on our end.
Mhm.
The host committee or the stadium folks will put us in contact with the local folks there, but we kind of manage and handle that process. Whereas other areas where the host committee may be the ones that are doing it is like really kind of they're responsible for the safety and security things. So local law enforcement and things that are going to happen there, they're responsible for those costs. Those are things where the host committee might take the lead. We'll be involved because we do want to understand from a safety security standpoint what's going on and how it's going to be integrated. But really, that they may take the lead because they're ultimately responsible for that obligation. So it really just depends.
Yeah.
Depends on what the situation is and where it is, what about who parties there. But the goal with all of this, it wouldn't work unless we had coordination between ourselves and the local host committee that's there, and then the interaction with the state and local government. So it just really just depends. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's them, sometimes it's all of the above. So
I see. This is more a personal type of question, but I imagine other people will be very curious. Do you do the inspection of these stadiums? Like it's amazing seeing them when they are full, but also I imagine it's amazing seeing them empty when they turn on the lights and you see how magnificent they can be.
Yeah, so my team, the legal team, doesn't necessarily make sure that we will be in conjunction with that, but we have a whole venue
Mm-hmm.
operations team that does go in and does and inspect. So they go in and they ensure that the pitch is basically up to specifications from a sizing standpoint and
Mm-hmm.
doing that. So they do kind of work with the stadiums to make sure that happens. We do have like we have a whole like so the thing about it is we're taking over the stadium, so each of the stadiums has to provide us the stadium free of all third party rights. So we go through the stadium and we make sure that all of those third party things are removed. So third party rights being so there's in North America there are a lot of commercial activity that goes in the stadium. So there's a lot of signage, there's a lot of commercial branding that happens there. All that has to be removed. So we do kind of just make sure from a client standpoint all that happens. There's a team that manages that. And then even from a ticketing standpoint, we've gone into each stadium to just basically count every single seat to make sure that the manifest that they gave us actually matches those things there. And then you find discrepancies and you see where it is and then you make the adjustments to the overall manifest to ensure that the seat is there. Because what you can't do on our end, we can't sell a ticket, and when the person gets it, that seat doesn't exist. So we actually do go in and have people go seat by seat to ensure that that manifest matches and those seats match. So there's a lot of work that goes into that and a lot
Okay.
of things like that when we can basically support that from a legal perspective.
I can imagine. I mean, yeah, sport law is not a part of the curriculum of many law schools, right? Probably it's very common in Europe and also here in the United States. But what led you to get in connection with these mega sport events?
Yeah, so I
What
guess
pushed you?
it starts way back for me. My very first job when I was 16, I was born and raised in Atlanta, and the Olympics came through in
Oh.
1996, and I just turned 16, so I was eligible to work. And my very first job that I had was working at the Olympic Stadium during the Olympics. I was working for Coca-Cola,
Hmm.
and it was my job to just fill vending machines and coolers in these suite area and VIP areas. Absolutely loved that job and caught the bug of like, man, you're actually going to pay me to go to sporting events and do that. So I would always make sure that I paid, that I basically filled up my job and did what I need to do, and then I could basically go out and watch the track and field events that were going on. So I kind of fell in love with it then, and I thought I was going to be a orthopedic surgeon. I was going to be a team doctor. Went to college, took organic chemistry, and found out that I was never going to be a doctor because I just failed at it. So. Really, I made the decision late in college to go to law school, and I knew I wanted to kind of stay within sports because I know that's what it was, and so I chose Tulane University because they had a sports law program, and I went to Tulane and got a sports law certificate from them because they have a curriculum focusing on sports law. And then from there, just kind of just took off from there. When I came out of law school, I did not want to go to a law firm. So I
Hmm.
just kind of bet on myself and took an internship with the Atlanta Hawks when I came out of law
Wow.
school. It was only supposed to be a 3 month internship. A couple of things happened. I got a little bit lucky. Lightning kind of struck me and hit me. And I was able to, they kept me on because they had an opening for me. They liked the work that I did. And I was able to move over and to get a full-time role with them. From there, I left Coca. I mean, well, I left the Hawks and then went to Coca-Cola, where I was in their sports and entertainment business affairs group, and just
Hmm.
did sports and entertainment transactions in their college and university space. Then after that, went to NBC Sports. And then after NBC Sports, went to the NCAA, where I was kind of doing all of their championships and their corporate partnerships and media relationships and managing their IP portfolio. Then had the opportunity after that to go back to Coca-Cola, where I was the head of the sports and entertainment legal team and managed everything from a marketing and sports and entertainment thing from a legal perspective at Coke, and was working on the other side of the table at FIFA. So I was managing that relationship from a legal standpoint. And then Leave FIFA kind of inquired about me and asked me if I wanted to come over to work as the general counsel here for the World Cup. And it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for me to do that.
Absolutely.
So I just took that opportunity and left Coca-Cola, which was a good job that I was loving and doing a whole bunch of things with,
Mhm.
not only just FIFA, but the Olympics, the Grammys, everything related to kind of sports and entertainment that Coke does. But getting a World Cup was just a once in a life, rest of a generation opportunity for me. So I knew I needed to do it. So that's kind of how I got here. So for me, my career has really been, I knew I wanted to work within sports because that's kind of where my focus has been. I kind of focused in on that when I was in college and in law school. And then just, Heard a bunch of no's, but just got the right amount of yeses to kind of just get myself to the right steps in the things in my career here up to this point now. So
Pretty amazing, Curtis. And for students and young lawyers at this time, we're 2026 now. What opportunities do you see for them to get more experience, to get involved in sport law? You know, highlighting that this is also a practice that they can exercise, corporate law, the business law, litigation also. There is the CAS, the arbitration court in Lucerne, right? So there are many issues that they can practice. IP, right? That exists in the field. So how do you what would you recommend to young students or young professionals to get more involved with this practice?
yeah, for me, one, I just think too, you gotta have the passion for it. So just one, if you really have the passion for it, you go for it, just understand that. I think when I do interviews with folks, I can kind of tell if you really have the passion for it or if you just think it's just a cool job and you just kind of want to just
Mhm.
do it. So really, if you're exhibiting the passion in that things, like start there. I think to learn the sports, the sports ecosystem. And I think when I hear a lot of law students come out of law school, they're always just kind of focusing on like a team. I got to go work for a team, and that's kind of what they think from a sports law perspective. But the sports ecosystem is vast. So learn the sports ecosystem, all the things that go into it. So there are sponsors, there are media partners, there are sporting agencies, there are all kinds of things that support and tap into the sports ecosystem. So for me, Coca-Cola is a major sponsor and they have a whole, work stream that they have from that. Their focus is on beverages and selling beverages, but they sell beverages and market them through sports, using sports and entertainment. There are a bunch of companies that do that. So if you're at a game and you're at a match and you just kind of look around and see all of the signage and things that are going on, some lawyer had some touch point to that. So kind of think about that and expand your horizons beyond just working for a team or just there. Think about agencies, think about unions, think about all kinds of things that tap into those things that will help. And I would say the other thing is just like be ready for the no. Like you're going to hear the no a lot just because everybody wants it. You can have the passion for it in the background for sports, but you are also competing with everybody else that thinks this is a cool job. But don't let the no discourage you. Like if this is something that you want to do, just be, really kind of just kind of keep your head down, keep doing it and kind of going after it. And eventually you'll get the break if you really are dogged about it and going after it where you want to be. The last thing I want to say is like, hey, look, just remember this. 'Cause I always tell people this on the other side. Like when you're in sports and everything else, unless you're on the field, you're not making big money. So if your goal is to come into this thing and make a whole bunch of money,
Mhm.
then you probably should go to big law, kind of go to things like that and get where you want to be. But like, just understand, like, you are kind of like at a point. This is more about, yes, is what I say about the passion part of it. The passion part, I understand that because for me, until you kind of get to more and more senior levels, you're really kind of making below market just because they know everybody wants these jobs and you want to do it. So kind of go into that with that mentality too, that this is not what you're going to make a whole bunch of money because it's just not that. If that's your goal, you should probably go to a firm, do the things that you need to do to kind of get your money and maybe come back around to sports on the back end where you're a little bit more senior. But if you're just kind of coming in and there and on the bottom level, just understand like it is not basically this lucrative thing that you're coming out to do because the people who make the most money in sports are the folks that are actually playing it, not necessarily the people behind the scenes doing the actual administration and things on that one. So
Yeah, Curtis, but I can see the huge value of the work you're doing
definitely.
because billions of people will follow the World Cup, and it will be a real opportunity also for the United States to get soccer programs being improved, and their participation in these international competitions also that place the United States in a better position. But you're making history by doing these type of events, right? It's every 4 years, and kind of the world stops during these the celebration of these matches, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the passion point behind it. That's what gets
Yeah.
me wanting to be involved with it. Though that kind of just interaction, that passion when you see the fans in there. It like for me, there's nothing like walking into an empty stadium when no one is there. Kind of that gives me a rush when I kind of see those things, but it also gives me a rush when I see that they fully impact and the event is going on. So yes, I agree with you. Like that's again, that's one of the main reasons why I took this position because it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to come on the world's largest sporting event ever. just kind of be associated with that. And I had a big part of that. It's something I'm going to take a lot of, I've already taken a lot of pride in, given the work I've done so far. And I'll take a lot of pride in as we go through the actual tournament as well. So,
Absolutely, and you should. So, Curtis, thank you very much for being with us, and we hope that this conversation will. It was very informative for sure, but also will inspire students and young professionals to get more involved if they're interested and have a passion within sport law. Okay.
hey, thanks. Sorry I could be in person. My schedule didn't allow it, but yeah, thanks for this opportunity for me to guys talk to you and everything. It was great. I enjoyed
Thank,
it.
thank you so much.
Thanks.